Hi everyone, in this series I'll be taking a look at a few extra options for some of the basic fundamentals in Maya 2013. In this particular video I'm going to be taking a look at a few extra options for creating Polygon objects which expands on the information set out in the third video in the Essential Skills Movies panel when you first open up Maya. So let's take a look at a few of the extra options. To begin with, just to briefly recap on what was explained in that video, basically we can create a polygon object by coming up to the Create menu at the top of the screen and coming down to Polygon Primitives and then selecting one of these shapes. So for example, I can create a sphere by selecting the Sphere option, and we get a little instruction in the middle of the viewport saying drag on the grid. So what this means is hold down the left mouse button somewhere on the grid and then drag. When you let go of the mouse button, the object will be created. So the center of the object in this case is determined by the location you first click and hold the mouse button down. So in order to do that again, just to demonstrate that, if I left click over here and then drag, you can see there it's going to create the sphere in that location. For different polygon shapes, there are slightly different methods for creation as far as the instructions that are given on the tool message in the middle of the viewport. So for example, with the sphere, it basically just said drag on the grid. With a cube, you can see we get a different instruction. It says drag the base on the grid, then pull up for height. What this means is we start off in the same way as we did with the sphere. We hold down the left mouse button in the position we want to begin, and we drag until we're happy with the size or proportions of the shape. What this is going to do is create the footprint of our cube or our box. So let's say I want something that's sort of more of a rectangle, like this. When I'm happy with the shape, I let go of the mouse button, and then it says drag up to set height. I then hold down the left mouse button a second time, and then push my mouse forwards in order to increase the height, or I can pull the mouse back towards me, or drag the mouse down, and the shape will be created below the surface of the grid that we have in our viewport. Once again, once you're happy with the position and proportions of the shape, just let go of the mouse button and the shape will lock into place. Okay. So there are a couple of other options for creating these shapes. So let's take a quick look at some of those. If we come back up to the Create menu and we come down to Polygon Primitives again, you can see that each option has a little box at the end of next to it at the end of the menu. This is called an option box. So for example, if I select Sphere option box, you can see that it highlights there. If I click that, the tool settings panel will open up on the right hand side of the interface, just here, and we can manually type in the values that we want in order to create the sphere. So for example, if I'm building something to scale, so in other words, if I'm building something, let's say at a scale of 1 to 1, or in other words, a real world scale, and I need a specific radius for my sphere. So the radius is the distance from the center of the sphere to the outside edge of the sphere. So let's say I'm building a soccer ball. And let's just say hypothetically a soccer ball has a radius of about 35 centimeters. I know that my grid is set to centimeters at the moment because that was what my preferences were set to. So what I can do here is type in 35. Now of course that's going to be quite a big soccer ball, but let's just say that that's going to be the case. So I can type in 35. Okay. Now you can see here it says description, drag or single click on the grid. When we're using this panel, what we do is, instead of dragging on the grid, we just click once on the grid with the left mouse button, and it will create, in this case, a sphere to the size that I typed in the panel. You can see that the panel then just shuts down. The information now on this tool settings panel is actually the settings for the select tool, which is what Maya reverts to when no other tools are selected. So I can use that tool settings panel with the Polygon shape options to create specifically sized objects. We'll just do one more so we can see the process again. I can go to Create, Polygon Primitives. I'll do a cube this time. And if I go down to the options, you can see that the tool settings panel basically brings up the options for the Polygon cube tool. And you can see the name of the tool that we've got currently selected just here. So once again, I've got width, height, depth in this case. So let's say I need, a width of 3 centimeters. So I can type in 3 and hit Tab, and that will go down to the height entry. And let's say the height needs to be maybe 2.5. And these are centimeters, don't forget. I can hit Tab, and then I need a depth of, let's say, I don't know. Let's say I need a depth of 30. Okay, so what I do is just hit Enter once I've typed in that last number. And I can then just click somewhere on the grid, and it will create the object of those dimensions. Like that. Alright, so let's take a look at another way that we can actually access some of those options. So let's say I don't want to use the menus at the top, okay, because sometimes they can be a bit fiddly. It can be, sometimes if you accidentally move your cursor off the menu disappears like that. So let's say I want to get into the settings for the cube tool again, but I want to get into those settings much more quickly. What I can do is just double click the Polygon cube icon. So you can see here I've got my Polygons tab, and these are my Polygon creation tools, which are the same as the ones that we've just looked at in the menus. So let's say I go to Polygon cube. If I double click this, it will pop open the settings just here, and I can go back in and I can type in my new settings and so on. If you want to reset all of these values to what they were originally, which generally is a width of 1, height of 1, depth of 1, you can press Reset tool just here, and it will revert them all back to the original settings. So let's take a look at the width division, height division, depth division just here, these next settings down here as well. You'll be using these relatively frequently as well. Okay, so by default, usually a cube and many of the other shapes in Maya, I'll just press solid view here. Basically, with a cube by default, it's formed of one panel per side. Okay, so you can see here, top, bottom, front, back, left, right. It's one panel per side. If I wanted to create a cube that had more than one panel per side, I can add divisions in the settings before I create the cube. So I'll just delete that again. So I'll double click my icon, and if I come down here to width divisions, and I just change this to 2, and then hit tab and then 2, tab 2 to enter those values into all those fields, and then I click and drag on the grid, you can see now each of the sides of my cube now has 4 panels or polygons in each. So what this is doing is that particular setting, the divisions 2, it's not counting how many edges that you're putting through or cuts that you're putting through the side. It's actually counting the resulting polygons that you're getting in each side of the object in a particular direction. So in this case, width 2 basically means that you've got 2 polygons running across the width, which is this direction. Okay, so we've got 1, 2. The height divisions is how many polygons are running vertically up the object. In this case, 1, 2. And the depth divisions is how many polygon panels you've got running from the front of the object to the back of the object. So in that case, it's 1, 2. So that results in having 4 polygons per side in this case. So what happens if we perhaps reduce the width divisions back down to 1? So I'll just move the slider in that case, back down to 1, and if I click and drag, you can see that the difference that that's made, if I just turn on my wireframe on shaded, we can see the edges now. You can see now that from this side, the objects look the same. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons here. But on the front, it's changed. We've got 4 on the original front, but now we've only got 2 polygons here on this one. So the reason for that is that we've only got a single width division of 1 for this object, whereas this one had its width division set to 2. So we get 2 polygons here, but we only get 1 set of polygons running across the object. The height was still set to 2, which is why we've got 1 polygon here and another polygon above it. But running from left to right, we only have a single polygon width. It can take a little bit of time to get used to that concept, but adding these polygon edges will be something that you'll be doing quite frequently while you're modeling. Okay, so one last little option about creating objects, and it's got to do with whether or not you have control over actually clicking and dragging to create your objects, or whether the object just appears. Let's take a look back at the Create menu, Polygon Primitives again, and just for this little section, I'm going to break this menu off as a free floating panel. If I click on the little strip at the top here, it actually pops out as a little floating menu there. And this is handy if you're going to be using several different options or the same object multiple times in quick succession. It just means you don't have to keep coming back up here to the menu. Alright, so let's take a look at interactive creation and what this does. Okay, so at the moment, interactive creation is ticked, and what that's doing is basically allowing us to select a tool and then click and drag, and basically what we're doing is interacting or using the mouse to control the overall result that we get. In other words, we're actually adjusting the shape as we're creating it to get the result that we want. If we turn off interactive creation like this, and for example, if I select, let's just go with a cube again. If I click cube, you can see here that what it's doing is it's just automatically creating a default cube at the center of the grid. Now, the issue with that is that I may not have necessarily wanted a cube, and now in order to use this, I'm going to have to modify the shape by maybe using the scale tool and the move tool in order to position it and get it to the right size. And that's just a little bit of extra work for me. So you'll need to keep in mind that if you find that when you're selecting one of these tools and it's just popping up a default shape like this in the middle of the grid, you will need to come up to Create, Polygon Primitives, and just take a look and see if interactive creation is ticked. Okay, if it's not, just check it, and basically you'll get that fully functional mouse control back when you're creating your shapes. Let's just have a quick look here. So I'm now in Polycube Options, which I got to by clicking this button, and you can see that it's actually popped up in a separate floating panel. Okay, you'll find sometimes the tools will do this, and sometimes they'll pop up in the tool settings. This cube is being created by these settings. So whatever these settings are set to, you can see it's all ones, that's what it'll create. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to set this width to, actually I'll set the height to 5, like this, and I'll set the height divisions to 5 as well. Okay, now what I'm going to do is come up to Edit, Save Settings, like this, and then I'm just going to press Close. And we'll see whether or not we can get this to create a shape. Alright, so I'll just delete that one, and I'll come back up to Cube, and I'll just press Cube. You can see now it's producing a cube, a polygon cube, with the settings that I typed in and saved. So if we need to basically fix this tool or reset it, what we can do is come back into Polycube options, back up to edit, and we can hit reset settings, and it will revert all of these back to what they were. And then what we can do is just go edit, save settings, and then just press close. And the next time we use the tool, we'll get our original settings back. Okay, so don't forget, if you want to type in your actual values or a particular scale or size, you can select the options just here from your menus, or you can double click on your icon in order to get your tool settings to pop up on the side. If you want to be able to click and drag on the grid, interactive creation has to be ticked like this. Okay, you can see the difference there. With interactive creation ticked, the settings opened up in this panel, whereas when it was unticked, it opens up as a floating panel. Okay, so that's it for this video. I'll see you next time.